Hey everyone, what is going on? Welcome to episode 12. I'm the Savage Coder, and in this episode, we're going to continue with our development of our API and our website. Before we jump in, just wanted to make a quick announcement to say thank you. We have hit 100 subs. So I didn't know if anybody was going to be interested in this little channel, but not that 100 subscribers is anything earth-shattering compared to these crazy viral videos that are out there, but I appreciate it and it makes a difference to me, so thank you to all of you. In celebration, we'll be turning on the special effects, and so you can look for a few cool things that are happening in this video, and hopefully that'll make things a little more fun. That's my extra way of saying thank you again. Let's get it on. Hey everyone, just wanted to jump in. While I was editing this episode, I realized that the content was too long, and so I split it into a video short that shows you how to use Git to download the code for each episode. So from here on out, I'm just going to assume that you know how to get the code so you can follow along. There will be a link in each description to the Git repo, and if you don't know how to do that, just watch that video short. It takes you through installing and how to get the code, whether you want it in the before episode state or if you want all the code from the end of the episode. So back to the video. All right, and we are good to go. So let's go ahead and open up our episode 12 Savage Cell UI MVC UI project. There's our solution. All right, and the last time we messed with this, we just did basically a create new project. So this is the way that we get it. Just as a quick side note, I got some feedback that the last episode was a little confusing with the API side of things, probably because we started talking about dependency injection and we started talking about separation of concerns and the way that we're using interfaces. So I think the approach I would take to that is don't worry too much if you don't understand how everything works. I'd rather you know that you can do A, B, and C and it's going to work. And as you work through this and we get to some more endpoints, right now we only have that one and it was the first time you saw it. Just kind of treat it like your car. Like you can get in your car and turn the key and you don't have to know the ignition timing or anything like that of your engine to drive your car. But as you get to know your car more and more, there are more and more things that you understand about it and the way it works. This is the same. Think if you're learning a new language and you don't understand the verb tenses, or if you're learning a musical instrument and you don't understand some things about scales. As long as you can play that scale for now, we're good. And trust me, just working with it, and especially when we get to the next part of adding more endpoints and you see how we repeat certain processes, and then you see when we make a unit test how that relates in, it'll all come together. So stick with it and we'll get there. For now, we want to set up our website so that we can start to display our cards and things like that. So one thing that I want to upgrade here before we get started is inside this www root in our UI project, there's a lib folder, and in here is where Bootstrap lives. And so I want to replace this with Bootstrap 5 because currently it's Bootstrap 4. So I'm going to open up a browser. I'm going to search for Bootstrap, and it's the most popular UI framework. I don't know if that's true still, but they claim it is, so we'll go with that. And we're going to go to download. Make sure when you come here, by the way, let me go back. Make sure that it says you're currently on version 5. I'm not so concerned about the 0.2 because I don't know when you're going to be looking at this, but for now, we want to make sure that we're installing version 5. So I'm going to download that. And the compiled CSS and JS are perfect for us. So I'm going to click download, and I'm just going to stick it in a folder for now called Bootstrap. And I will open that folder up and extract it from its zip. And if you notice inside here, there's a CSS and a JS folder. If we look back at our project, we also have the same CSS and JS folder. So really, we just need to overwrite these new ones in our Bootstrap 5. We need to get rid of those and replace them. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to right-click the Bootstrap folder in my project, and I'm going to tell it to open the folder in File Explorer. And that's going to pop open a window that's inside our project in this www.root live Bootstrap in here. And inside dist here, I'm just going to select these two and hold shift and hit the delete key. And permanent delete those two folders. Once they're gone, then I'm going to copy my version 5 ones. I'm just going to highlight those and drag them over here, and you can do a move. If you do a move, it'll happen instantly. And now they're no longer in here. All right, so I'm going to close that guy. And now everything inside dist here is up to date version 5. One of the other advantages of version 5 is it doesn't use jQuery, which at this point, in my opinion, is getting pretty outdated, and it can be large. And so I like to keep things up to date and with frameworks that I like to use. All right, now that we're up to date, we are going to make some changes to our site. As a reminder, if we hit start, this is what our website currently looks like. So Bootstrap is already giving us this kind of nice title bar here with a shadow and the fonts and the footer. So we're ahead of the game a little bit, but there's nothing on this page that looks anything like what we are building. So let me run the other one so that we have a reference and we know what we want to put together. All right, so we're not going to worry about the styles yet. We will look at things like the heading and then this line here, and then we've got to put our cards together. So let's start with our heading. Right now on our site, our heading just says welcome. Let's go to that page in our UI. Actually, before we look at the page in the UI, let me just re-describe the structure a little bit. Kind of like our API, we also have controllers in here. The controller is responsible for listening, just like in our API where it would listen for routes and it would respond with data. In MVC, our controllers listen for requests and it returns web pages instead of just data. So the home controller, it already by default uses some dependency injection, right? So that it can put a logger in and we can control that logger. Right now it's not logging anywhere, but it's all set up so that we can log things like errors and we can see when things go wrong. We can also log successes, whatever we want. And then each of the actions inside is just a method. So that right now there are 3 actions. One is the index or the default action. The other one is privacy. That's our privacy link on the web page. That's this privacy when we click that. If you look down here when it pops up, you can see that it's going to home/privacy. And so home/privacy would call this privacy method. So in the case of index, all it's doing is returning the default view. The default view is in the views folder, and it'll have the same name by convention as this home controller. So remember when we were setting up our API, the name of this class is important. So this word home, if it matches a folder under views, which it does, called home, then if we create an index.cshtml, that would be the default view for the home controller. So if we just navigate to home, if we open our browser here, right now we're not specifying anything. So the default is home. But even if we put the word /home here, you can see it's still pulling up the same page because by default, it's actually pulling up home index. right? If I did home privacy, then it would pull up the privacy page. But if I go to home, it's just going back to the default. And the way you set up the default, that's not magic. If we go in our startup.cs and you look at the last thing in here under the app use endpoints, it's set up to say, hey, this is the default route, and always go to a controller and an action, but if nothing is specified, default the controller to the home controller and make the action index. And if there's any arguments passed after index, they can come in as an argument called ID. We'll look at that later when we start selecting the individual cards for selection in our site. But for now, if we don't put anything in our URL in our browser, like here, it's going to assume /home/index because of that configuration. If you wanted it to load a different one, you could just put the name of your controller and the name of your action. If I change this to privacy, I have to stop it and restart it for that kind of a change. Then when we run our site with no arguments after it, it'll just load privacy. And so home actually would bring us to home index at that point, but privacy would be our default. But we're gonna not do that, and we're gonna leave it at index. So in our home index page, we want to get rid of everything that's there for now. Except we'll leave the code at the top. But I'm going to put in a div and I'm going to put in an h1. And we'll give it a class of display4. And we'll call it Savage Cell. So what is all that crazy stuff? Well, this is HTML, and I'm not going to be teaching a full HTML course, but I'll explain what we have and why I did it this way and where I got these classes from so that you understand and can do it yourself. The class text center actually comes from the Bootstrap library. If we go to the Bootstrap site and go under docs, and then we go to content, we can look at the typography. And here it'll tell you that an H1 is a heading, and H2 is a slightly smaller heading, and so on. So we can do a P class H1, or we can just use an H1 or an H2 or an H3 tag. And then if we're going to use the H1, then we want to tell it what size heading we want. And so these are what the display heading sizes look like. I just chose 4 because that looked like a decent size. You can use all of the Bootstrap classes to lay out your HTML. So if we take out the classes, then we'll have our HTML, but we won't have any styling on it. H1 is a heading, but it's a default heading. Now, some of this is still going to be styled by Bootstrap, but you'll see this page doesn't look anything like our other styled page that we want as an output. So first thing, we want to center this, and so to center it, we add class equals text center. And that's just a built-in Bootstrap class that you can find on here. So if we look in the docs under utilities text, you can actually find text alignment. And so you might have to search through these for a little bit, but here's text start, text center, text end, and that will do these to them inside your div. Your div's just an invisible container. All right, and then we did our class equal display4. And that turned us from this into this. Don't worry if it takes a minute to refresh the first time you hit this refresh when you make a change. The first time it usually takes a while. but we don't have to stop our website. We can actually make changes to the HTML and save, and then we can just refresh the browser to see our changes. All right, so the next thing that we have on our site here is we have this horizontal rule that is straight HTML. And so right under our H1, we're just going to do an HR with our self-closing tag. We don't need a /HR after that. HR is one of the self-closings. And so if we save that and refresh, there's our line. Nice. We are going to create a card. So if we go back to Bootstrap and we look at components and we look at cards, you can see an example of a card and the HTML that it takes to make that card. So our card in here looks a lot like that, right? It doesn't have a button, but it has an image, a link, and some text. We'll go with this one. The reason is it has our image. We need that. It has a title that we can turn into this link. So that's kind of there already, although we would want to center it. And then it has some text, which ours has text in it as well. And then we can just delete the button. So let's go with this one. So to do that, I'm just going to copy this block here, and that's going to create our image. Although I can see already that this image source of ... isn't going to really make this image cap here. It'll have an image tag, but we'll have to set up the image in it. So let's go ahead and underneath our div for now, let's just paste that in. And let's hit save and refresh our page and see what it does. So it's getting there. It's getting there. We're not quite there yet. So first thing we want to do is dump this button. So let's find our href go somewhere. Right, that's our button of go somewhere. And we're just going to delete that. Bye-bye. Let's save that and see what that gives us. Now we need an image. I've already got some default images that I got online from a place that allows us to use these images for free, but we have to add them to our project. So I'm going to expand www-root, and inside there I'm going to create a folder called assets. Actually, let's make that lowercase. And inside assets, I'm going to add another folder called images. And that way, if we have other assets like fonts or other things, we can put them in here. But images is going to hold our images. So to find these images, I just went on the web and I opened up a tab and I typed free product images. And in Unsplash here, I just searched for a few and I just downloaded some images. I just made sure that they were the same size. You see how some of these are like long rectangles. I didn't use those, but there were a bunch that just had these smaller rectangles. So I grabbed those, and these are the ones I downloaded. And I just named them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, just for me for now. And we'll use that to start, but we'll end up changing these. So I'm going to copy these. You can find these images in the GitHub repo in this folder. So if you just clone this UI project with the tag for the end of episode 12, they'll already be in there. So you can get them from the repo itself. So I'm going to right click my images folder, open in File Explorer, and I'm going to copy my images in. So there they are. And now you'll be able to see them in here. Cool. Just as a test, let's hard code this first image /assets/images/1.jpg. And for alt, I don't even remember what is image 1. Let's see, large icons. Image 1 is a purse or a backpack. I think it's a purse. So I'm just going to put alt is going to be purse picture. The alt tag is a way to describe what the image is for people that can't see the images, either because of disabilities or certain browsers that don't show pictures, things like that. All right, let's run this and see if we got it right. Okay, it's a start. Starting to get there, right? So what needs to change? We need to make this a link, and we need to center all of that text in there because these are centered. So let's put the 3 pieces of information in there. We'll hard code it for now. Black bag, $50. So here's the title. So we'll call that black bag. And instead of this, all this text in this p tag, we're just going to put $50. We'll save that and refresh. Okay, not bad. And then looks like we got some name below it. We'll just add a div with that. And let's actually make this a div. It's not really a paragraph, which is a p tag, and we'll get rid of the class for now. And refresh. All right, so other than centered, I think that's pretty much it. So the easiest way to center everything is to let this text center class affect not just this div, but also this whole div. So I think if we surround this entire thing and not just the heading with a center, that everything in there would get centered. So I'm going to move this /div on line 8, and I'm going to move that down to line 17. And so now everything in here will get centered because it lives inside this outer div. And there we go. All right, so now instead of hard coding this, let's set up our UI project so that it can get some data from the API. So we're going to do the same things in here that we did in our API as far as a service layer and a repository layer, because the view is a presentation layer. Its job is to display things to the user, but its job is not to get the data. And the controller's job is just to listen for endpoints, right? It listens for the index page route and it returns the view for that route, but it doesn't get the data. So we're going to add 2 folders. The first one is services, and the second one is repositories. And this is that same service repository pattern that we used in the API. So we're going to create it the same way. Let me close some of these other folders so that we can concentrate on this. So the home controller, before it goes and returns the view, is going to call out to a service, right? We want to call a service here. So we'll have something like var products equals service dot get products. And then that service will call a repository layer to get products, and the repository layer is going to call our API. And it'll get the products from the API. And when it returns products, we'll pass that into the view. And we'll use it inside the view as a model. So we'll have to create that model as well. But let's take this one step at a time. So we're going to go and add I'll choose class, but I'm going to switch to an interface once it loads. And I'm going to make this an products service. And again, I'm going to copy everything but the I, just like last time, to save me some typing. I'll hit add, make it public, clean up the using statements at the top. And it's going to have a list of product. Not an I product, just a list of product and it's going to be called get products. So now we've got to bring in our namespaces for the list, which is system.collections.generic. And we can't bring in the product because we don't have one. So let's create a models folder. Oh, we already have a models folder. Never mind. And it doesn't know what product is, so we have to add a model for our product. So we'll go to the models folder, add a class. We will call it product. And now here you're going to see some overlap because we already created this product class in our API. For now, we're just going to create a duplicate of this product class, but we'll go back later and we'll combine the two in a more shareable way so that we don't have duplication of code like that. But I'm going to go back to our API project and I'm going to go into our product class and I'm just going to copy what we already did. And I'm going to paste it inside here, right? So now we have a product in Noble Cause Savage Cell UI models. So I'm going to close that and now bring in that namespace back in our interface. And just in case I lost my buffer, I'm going to recopy the word product service. I'm going to right-click services, add class, paste product service, and I'm going to implement the I product service. And once it underlines that, I can tell it to implement the interface, and it creates my get products. Boom. So again, you don't have to completely understand what these interfaces do, just understand how to create them and call them. So next thing we have to do is the same exact thing for the repository. And in this case, we're going to name it I products repository. And let me copy everything but the I. We will make it public. We will add a list of product as the return type and get products. And we can bring the product model into scope and clean up these usings. And then we will add a class based on that interface. So we'll paste and name it products repository. And implement I, paste products repository, and we can implement this interface. And so for now, this will eventually call the API, but for now we're just going to return a new list of products so that we can test this out. So let's start with our home controller. We need to call this product service. So I'm going to add a private read-only I products service called underscore products service. We will bring in that namespace and clean those usings up. And then just by selecting product service, this time since we already have a constructor, we don't want to generate a constructor, but we want to add this parameter to the home controller's constructor here. So I'll choose that, and I'm just going to clean up the formatting so you guys can see this better. But what's going to happen is once we add this to the dependency injection, when the home controller gets created, it will pass in a logger and it will pass in a product service. Logger is already registered with the dependency injection system. And then once it passes in our instance of product service, it will assign it to this variable so that we can use it down here. And we're going to almost do this line of code, but we called ours products service, products service, get products. And then our products is our model. And so we're just going to pass that model to the view. and it is a list of product. Okay, so we've injected our service, but our service needs to not throw an exception. It needs to return the result of our products repository dot get products. And we don't have a products repository yet. We need to inject that here as well. So private read only. You see this pattern that's emerging. Products repository. Can't type today. And we'll bring that interface in scope, clean these guys up. I'll create a constructor that assigns that products repository to this variable, and then I can spell it right and call get products in the repository. So cool, and the repository doesn't do anything. It just returns a list, an empty list of products all the way back to the service. The service then returns it back to the home controller, which sends it to the view. So instead of just sending a list of product, we're probably going to need more things in our model later. So we're going to make a view model, which is just a class that can hold this list of products and other stuff as we need it. We're going to add a new folder called view models, and we will make this class a home view model because it's going to be used in the home view. And right now the only thing that we have is our list, so we're just going to make a list of product, and we'll call it products and make it just a property. Let's bring that using statement in and clean these guys up. So just a simple class that exposes one property called products that will hold our list of products. And we're going to assign that here. Oh, not here. We're going to assign that here. So we'll create our view model equal to a new home view model. And rather than just use our parens here, we can actually make it curly braces and assign it all at once. So we can just name the property there, which is products equals products. Or if we wanted to simplify it even more, we could just grab this in place of that. Oops. Like that. Get rid of our semicolon. So now we have a view model and we can add properties to it. So if we need a name or we need any other information, we can just comma and add the new property here. And we would just go into the home view model itself and add the new property. And it's just kind of carrying data from our service. And in this case, the service is going to return the products. So now we'll pass the view model into the view, and we have to go and tell the view what to expect. So just to re-explain that in case that's a little confusing, we just want, when we get to our view, we're going to have a lot of different information in there. And one of those things is the list of products. We may have other things on the web page later. So every view is going to have a view model, and its job is just to hold the data that the service gets in a property. And so if we have to make 5 service calls here, right, that all bring back different data, we can stick them, all those 5 pieces of data, let's say, in different properties of our view model. And then we just have one thing to pass to the view. So now we want to go into our view and we want to get to our products. So let's go back to our index.cs HTML. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tell it that, hey, your model is a home view model. So it's underlined because the namespace is not in scope here. So we'll just go back to the home view model and we'll copy the namespace line and we will prepend it here so that we can fully qualify the name. Whenever we type model dot, it knows that it's going to be a home view model that's being sent to it, and it's being sent by that controller, which is a home view model that we passed in here. So nothing's going to happen if we run this now because everything here is hard coded, and in our repo we're just returning an empty item, an empty list of product here. So just like we did before, I'm going to replace this with a faked single item. So we have a list of products. I add one product to it with these properties. I'm going to get rid of this loremnet stuff because it was just an example for before, and we really don't need that going forward. So the location, I'm just going to put someplace North Carolina. So now back in our view, we can actually use that list. And what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to create a loop. We're going to say for each var product in model, a capital model. I hate that they define the model here with lowercase, but when you use it, you have to use uppercase. It's just the way it is. They didn't call me when they were making that decision, so they didn't get my opinion on the matter, apparently. So we're going to loop through our products. This @ sign in MVC tells the MVC engine that what's after this is C# code, not HTML. So that's why we put the @ sign there. And then inside the for each, we basically want to create a card for each one of these products, right? So if I just move that code inside that for each loop. So right now we have one product, so we should see one card come back. Now the card's still going to have the regular information that's hard-coded here. So before we can run this, we have to remember that we added a product service and a products repository. So we need to add those to dependency injection. So I'm just going to copy the name of the product service. We'll go into startup. And under configure services, after we add our controllers, we're just going to do a services.add singleton. And the data type is an iProduct service. And we wanted to create a product service. If this doesn't make sense, check out episode 11 in the card above. Bing! And then I'll duplicate that and we will add the repository as well. And tell it to create a repository and bring in that using. All right, let's try it out. All right, no errors, but we still are showing one bag. The funny thing is, if we stop this and we go back to our repository and we just add another item, I'm going to copy that from the API project and just add item 2 and just rerun it again. Oops. Can't do that. We have to replace our lorem ipsum generator. And we'll just make this someplace else. So now we'll see 2 items, which will go through our for each loop and make 2 cards. It's showing the same one, though. How about the data that's actually in each of these products? Well, our returned list of items is a list of product. So we should have access to the title, the description, the location, and the price. So let's go back to our view. And instead of just looping through here and showing the same card twice, I want, instead of black, I put black bad. That's good. Instead of our black bag, I want to access this product as we're going through our list of products. We're going to do product dot title. Make sure when you hit enter. Sometimes you hit tab and it messes this up, but it should end up being product.title. Same thing here. I'm going to do at product.price, and this will be product.location. So if we save that, it should update these things. We haven't touched the picture yet, so the picture will be the same, but we should update the title and the price and the location. So if I refresh the page, we get 50, we get 15, we get someplace NC, someplace else. So it is coming from our data. And then for our image, we can put at product dot, and it won't show us. Image. I know that our product has an image because we created it, and it is image, and in our repository we assign the image to an actual location. That does not need interpolation, by the way. I don't know why that's there. There is nothing being replaced inside this string, but it's there. All right, so if we save that and refresh, now we get the correct image. So the only thing that's wrong is the price is not being formatted correctly. So the documentation is there. It is a little difficult to find, but here is the standard numeric format strings for .NET. And these also apply to .NET Core. So you have this format specifier, which can be C for money, for currency. So if we scroll down enough, you'll see how to use it in C#. And the one that we're after here is actually this 0C2 in curly brackets. So the 0C2 will format currency with 2 decimal places after it. That's what the C2 is. So in order to use that, we have to be in a string format. And so in MVC, it's a little bit tricky, but we're going to use that product price. After the @ sign that tells MVC we're going to type some C#, we want to do a string.format, which we did cover string format in the beginner series. Sorry, capital format. And now in the quotes, we're going to put that funky curly brace 0:C2 and close the quotes, and then the value that we want to replace that with is product.price. And so a little funky, but once you know that, you can just copy and paste this anywhere you need currency to show up. And no, I don't always remember that one. Sometimes I have to look that up myself. But now that I know what I'm looking for, when I see it, I immediately recognize it. So you can see the $50 and $15 is correctly displayed. That's it for this lesson. We'll actually connect to the API in the next episode. I think there was a lot more to cover here than I originally intended to cover in one episode. So hopefully this wasn't too long and too involved, but I thought maybe you could handle it because the whole service repo pattern and dependency injection is all stuff we did in the very last episode. So this kind of reinforces that. And just to recap quickly, our home controller is called by default when you don't put a path. We create a view model with our list of products in it that we get from our service. The service gets it from the repository. The repository will be getting it from the API next episode. And then we just return our view and pass in our view model. Our view is nothing but HTML and CSS. We're borrowing heavily from Bootstrap here with styles like card and card body. That's all part of Bootstrap, and that makes our styling nice. And then we just have a simple for each loop that goes through our list of products that we got from our service. and each product one at a time will give its title, price, location, and image, and that will display on our webpage. So hopefully that makes sense to you. We will do more of this. There will be some repetition, and we'll refine this and add more endpoints to our API to consume. Once we do this a couple of times, I think it's going to become second hat to you. Yeah, that's still happening. And so, yeah, I hope this was good stuff. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and leave me some feedback in the description below. If you felt like this was too long, I need to know that too. I don't mind doing these in smaller chunks, but I'm not 100% sure how much you can handle in each chunk. So I normally try to keep it short, but this one went way over. So that's it for today. Again, thank you for the 100 subscriptions. If you haven't subscribed and you liked it, please do. And I thank you. And I will see you online.